Hello there.
We're not going on live now, are we?
We're live. Yeah, 12 o'clock. You and me are live
Oh,
on
okay.
Voices at Equippers Church Voices. Our midweek time, we get together and we talk about different things with different people from the church. And so I'm stepping in for John today, and I've got with me online in live Honey French. And Honey has been a forever member of Equippers Church. Prior to that, Shasta Grace, we started a long time ago. And even before the church started, Honey's been part of the ministry profile, the ministry team on the Central Coast for a long, long time. Going back into, Honey, when did you show up in ministry on the Central Coast with your husband? Or prior?
Well, if I told that, I'd be giving away my age.
Okay.
I came there.
You can hide that. Just say decade.
I came here to be the first woman correctional officer in a men's prison. And this is ridiculous. I thought I was an hour ahead, and I'm not even dressed right. I don't have lipstick on.
Your lips look like shiny. Like,
this is me.
You're good. You're good. We all have our coronavirus. This is our lockdown look. Actually, this is the first time I've done it from this office for several weeks now. I've been in another office at home and honoring the shut-in, and that we came out today. There's stuff going on here.
Yeah. Well, I've had a blessed life with both terrible hardships and wondrous miracles and personal sacrifices and many, many, many deaths to self. And I had to step out in faith when terrified. And then when I see the wonderful results, it gave me courage and for the next leap of faith. But
so that's a great phrase right there that you had to go through to arrive in a ripe age. What the age is for both of us, our ripe older age. The journey is many deaths to self, as you said, but that results in what, courage? Is that what you said? To go on to the next thing?
Yeah. And I came from a traumatic childhood, but that prepared me and gave me compassion, because hurting people hurt people. And it's so wonderful how God orchestrates your life. And, God is at work within you, both to will and to do of his good pleasure. So as a baby Christian, someone gave me the book, Prison to Praise, and I learned to praise God in spite of difficulties, not for them, but in spite of them. Right. And I've had to praise through things, horrendous 20-year trial where there seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And that was in my personal life. And even though I was used, and I had a lot of joy when I won souls, and he did amazing work at the prison, and it was all him, because I would want to speak to the good-looking, clean-cut ones, and he sent me to the roughest, toughest bikers, and they'd cry right in front of their tough buddies as they gave their lives to the Lord. And the tough buddy would watch this man grow and change and come to me, 3 weeks later and get saved. So I had joy in my work site, even though it was very scary at times, very stressful. But in my personal life, in the center of God's will, I had just horrendous difficulty, and it seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I could escape, but I knew I'd be out of God's will if I did. So I'd be sobbing, but I always would thank him that he was going to work it for good through my tears. And sometimes there'd be a breakthrough and I'd feel peace and joy. And sometimes there wasn't, but I have to go in faith. God was going to turn it around for good. And eventually he did, not as soon as I wanted, but I can honestly say, and I never dreamed I'd be able to say it, that I'm glad I went through it. because I can understand people with really serious difficulties, and I have compassion for them when they're going through it. And I can encourage them that he will turn it around for good, but to mainly trust him.
What you're saying right now, that's really the kingdom message, the message to the church and through the church right now, is that empathy, because of what you've gone through, you're able to see somebody else through their own eyes and be able to identify with their hurt and come alongside effectively. Because that's one thing that you are known for, is coming alongside and the tremendous fruit in dozens and hundreds of people bringing Christ into their life, into their situation. But it's amazing to look back and say that came because of all the suffering that you went through. Honey, how did you get that mindset where so many people, after they've suffered for a certain length of time, they want to make a deal with God? It's like, you want me to be that and be that person, and then you need to do this for me. And so their life kind of gets on hold while they're waiting for God to make that deal with them. That, if you love me, you'll do this and that person and this and give me a job. And instead of that attitude that you talked about, how did you get that? How did you know to do that?
Well, early as a baby, before all the difficulties started, I read that scripture. I think it's Matthew 16, 25, 26, 27, around there, that if you surrender your life, you'll gain it back. Like if you put aside your desires and what God's desires and sacrifice your desires, he'll give your life back blessed abundantly. But if you try to keep on to your will, you're in a early in my life, because of my God-arranged appointments before I was a Christian, God showed me his love. And I asked God if I could be part of God-arranged appointments to show God people's love, because he changed me and forgave me when I was living a life of pleasure, just doing my own thing and very selfish. And then, so I realized I'm missing out unless I go all the way for God. And if he doesn't want you to do something because he's love, it's because it's harmful, difficult, or could ultimately destroy you. And if he doesn't want you to do something, it could be a cheap counterfeit of something better he has for you.
Wow.
So I decided early on. And then I was already winning souls. But one day I was praying, and I don't feel lonely hardly ever. But that day I was lonely. And I said, God, do you ever get lonely? And he surprised me. He said, yes. I love the multitudes, but many of the multitudes don't come to me. And there's empty spots in my heart that only those individuals can fill. And I cried and sobbed for over an hour.
Wow.
And I said, God, change me more so I can win more souls for you. And then later, one day I was praying, it told me that he has just oceans of love for people. And some people only take teaspoons of that love. And some people just take, see, how do you say it? Tiny droplets. And some just go by and they just get a mist from those droplets. And so I wanted to help people get those oceans of God's love.
That's great. Amen. So the pathway of letting go and trusting God is really how we seek to save our life, we lose it, we give it to him, and we say, God, we trust you for making something of my life. And not only he takes you beyond, he creates a life you couldn't even have designed for yourself. And we take that approach. That's really
and being obedient.
Yes.
Being obedient to the hard things when you don't want to.
Yeah.
And then seeing the results. and being in season and out of season. So many times I'll talk to an officer and they don't want to talk about God. And then after work, after midnight in the cold parking lot, all of a sudden they decide they want to talk. And I want to go where it's warm. But if I know I asked to go in a car and both of us sit in a car and talk about what he wants to talk about, the moment will be past and they'll say, oh no, I got to get home. So I know I've got to take that moment in that cold parking lot with the wind blowing from Morro Bay Ocean and lead them to the Lord, and they get saved. But we got to do it when they're ready.
Yeah, I can't think of another example where somebody has had as much favor on their job to be a light or an example to Jesus without, management or boss or whatever turning against them. Like you had an amazing run, the Lord, out of prison, both in and around the different wards, but also in the gun tower. You had a fairly long career where they allowed favor. God worked it out. You have favor where you were touching people, literally.
Oh, I didn't have favor. I got reprimanded 3 times. It was really rough, and I got ridiculed and persecuted.
Okay.
And even the Christian officers didn't want to associate with me because guilt by association, and they were closet Christians. So it was really lonely. But the joy and the fulfillment, and I was even offered by the associate warden, called me into his office because I wouldn't promote. They wanted me to promote to sergeant and train me to be a lieutenant. I could have made 4 times more salary, but then I'd be behind a desk and not available to the inmates, accessible to them, and I was there for them. As an officer on the line, I'm there when they're exploiting, acting stupid, or getting sad letters from home, then I can talk them down and help them. But I was known as a Bible thumping Jesus freak. But God used that because a non-Christian.
I haven't heard that phrase for a while, but yeah, you're right. That's what we used to be called.
And I call them pre-believers instead of non-Christians.
Yeah.
So this pre-believer that never talked to me, and he called me on the phone just before he knew I was retiring, a day or two, and he told me that he watched me and he watched the men change that I talked and prayed with, and he said, this person won't be the same without you, because I've seen the changes in him. Yeah. And even though he wasn't ready to come to the Lord, he saw the results, and I was a witness to him. But even then, like obedience is so important because it teaches you greater faith, but also it affects the people that sees the obedience. Like one time it was pouring down rain, and I just arrived at the prison at 8 o'clock because I worked all different shifts. And it was 8 o'clock in the morning, pouring down rain, and the forecast was pouring down rain for 3 days. But there was a lull when I got to the prison. But I automatically reached for the umbrella, and I heard, didn't you ask to be led by the Lord? And it was like, oh no, I know what he's going to ask me. And I said, yes. He said, it's not going to rain when you get on and off, so leave the umbrella in the car. And I knew I was going to look ridiculous. People had umbrellas, they had hoods, and I just had my coat without a hood. I was going to go bareheaded, don't have a hat. And people did look at me. And so I thought after I got to my assignment, it's not faith unless I tell 3 people. So I told them.
Say that again, it's not faith unless what? You tell 3 people?
That it wasn't going to rain. I didn't have my umbrella.
Okay. Right.
And it poured all evening long. And 5 minutes before I was to get off work, the rain stopped. And as soon as I got in my car, the rain started. And then the next day, I found out the pre-believer left an hour before me. And as soon as he got to work the next day, he asked, did it rain on Honey when she got off work? So it was a witness to him.
Amen. You know what I mentioned before, like I called it flavor. I ministered for almost 2.5 years in the CMC East and West, and it's such a political place. For me, knowing how strong of a witness you were and how you lived out your obedience to the Lord in the midst of all that, I'm the fact you didn't get fired was favor, but actually you had to work through persecution and work it out in a really difficult way, and that's amazing.
23 years.
23 years. Wow.
And most of the time I loved it. Sometimes I actually felt I was going to explode with joy that it's someone to the Lord.
And being the first officer, you also then, it wasn't just about your faith, it was also about your agenda. So you're walking into two different agendas and places of persecution, and all of that you had to deal with too. So wow, that's pretty special. No wonder you titled the book you wrote Officer Honey.
Oh yes. And then also obedience. It's a beautiful cover. The 2 O's are handcuffs and they're broken. It's on Amazon. But also obedience away from the job. Like the hardest thing God had me do, there was a meeting, and at a home meeting, and there was a lady that was raised at 5 years old. Her babysitter took her to satanic cult meetings without her parents knowing about it.
Wow.
And that poor woman, she was 70, but when I met her about 65, and I saw her change quite a bit, but she still had a lot of issues. And they were praying for her. And I heard God say in my heart, punch Elizabeth in the stomach.
Wow.
And she's very frail, tiny, slim. And I thought, God, if this isn't you, she could go to the hospital and I could go to jail. So I made sure it was God. And I told the hostess of the meeting, and she said, well, you better do it if it's God, but you better know it's God. So I asked Elizabeth to stand up, and she's standing there all trusting with her eyes closed, and everybody had their eyes closed and was praying in tongues. And I drew my arm back. I said, not by might, not by power, but not by might, not by, what is it?
Not by might,
not by strength, but by his spirit. I can't do it. And then I tried again, not by might, not by power, but I can't do it. And the third time I said, God, you're going to have to help me. And I punched her, and she fell onto the couch. And I knew she got delivered, and I expected her to look happy. But she looked the way somebody would look if you punched them in the stomach, and why'd you do it? And then the hostess went over and hugged her, and everybody looked and thought, don't ask honey to pray for you.
We don't teach that in our prayer ministry. But anyway, I've heard some stories. Yeah.
Yes, God. Was that you? And I heard yes. I said, I don't care what it looks like.
Yeah.
I was obedient. And then later in the meeting, when everybody had left, Elizabeth said, oh, I had pain shooting around my body. And after you punched me, it went away. And it didn't even hurt. The punch didn't even hurt. Wow. I thought, why didn't she say that when everybody was there?
In front of everybody else in the meeting. Yeah. Oh boy. How many times have things been affected because you couldn't get somebody actually raise a hand when God did a miracle, God healed them, something happened, I just heard, I saw, and you're still in the spirit, and they wait till you come up to tell you.
Can I tell you another wonderful miracle?
Yeah, please.
I was getting ready to go to a Christian event, and I reached for my curling iron by the wrong end. And it was on. And when you reach for something to pick it up, you squeeze it hard. And so I had instant blisters, and it was really painful. And I hurried on to the meeting, and it was a worship ceremony. It was wonderful. It was with Dance With Me. And it was really hurting. I said, God, I want to worship you with my whole heart. And I want to not think about this pain. And I had to hide my hand when it came in so nobody would shake my hand and squeeze the big blisters. So I said, God, I want to forget about the pain. And I was just worshiping him with my hands up. And I thought, God, you can heal me because I can feel your presence so strong. And midway through the service, it all disappeared. All the pain was gone. And this big guy grabbed my hand at the end to shake it, and there was no pain.
Wow. Amen. That's awesome.
And other healings I have to contend for. And I don't understand about healing. There's many things we won't know until we get on the other side of eternity.
Yeah.
But I've prayed with people, and knee surgery's been canceled, rotator cuffs canceled, blindness healed. And one time at the doctor's office, I started talking to, she looked like a bag lady, and we were waiting for an appointment, and she was going nearly blind. So I told her programs she could watch and listen to. And then I explained a little bit. I gave her healing scriptures, and God wanted me to pray for her to be healed. I didn't want to because we were in the office with unbelievers, and they were listening. I thought, what if she doesn't get healed? It's going to make God look bad.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, but it was like, pray for her. So I explained about healing. I said, may I pray for you? Oh, please do. So I prayed for her, and I asked her to open her eyes and look across the room at that picture. And she said, well, it's still blurry, but it seems like it's a little better. So I told her to close her eyes, and I prayed again. I said, expect to see more. And she opened her eyes, and she could see a lot better. And by the third prayer, she could really see the picture. And when I sat back across the room, she could see my face clearly. So that was a witness to those people there.
No kidding. That's glorious. Amen. Physical eyes and spiritual eyes. So in terms of the hour that we live in right now, your message to people to develop courage for things at hand. Just talk about that in a minute, and then we're going to be closing in prayer. Talk about courage to live in difficult times.
Well, when you really surrender your life, like Matthew 16, and you really trust God, and you praise him in spite of the difficulties, because that's showing faith, and do what he wants you to do, even when you're afraid, that's faith. Doesn't matter if you're scared and trembling and don't want to do it. It's faith because you're obedient and you believe God was telling you to do something. That's real faith. So to not hold your life dear, to learn to spend enough time in his presence and just love him and let him speak to your heart, and by Holy Spirit being led by him, then he can give you God-arranged appointments, excitement, and people can get saved wherever you are. And got Carl's Jr., airports, bus stations, on the train, on the planes, just everywhere he sends you. But even if you're not meant, if you just are led to pray, because so many intercessors are never seen, but the reward's going to be great in heaven. Absolutely. So whatever the plan he has for your life, you'll fulfill it if you surrender everything, trust him, love him, and praise him in spite of the difficulties.
How many times did you hear about your calling before you actually started realizing? Or did you actually start walking in the fruit of it and then realize you had a calling called up?
Oh, in the beginning, I was called out of large conferences, and they gave me a prophetic word about my life when I was just starting out as a Christian. And I hung on to those words. You'd hear about that carrot on the stick. So those prophetic words gave me courage when my life, personal life, was in chaos, in the center of God's will, being obedient. And it was for the other person, besides teaching me things, because I was spoiled in my first marriage. And so I had to get rid of that being spoiled. But there was really pain for over 20 years. But and then Jill Austin called me out of the audience and took me out as a woman of wisdom. But I was to write the books because millions are going to be affected by my books. And this book is just one of 4 or 5 I'm to write. And I know the title and the content. And then after, she told me before I started this book, and after I wrote it, Gwen Shaw of the End Time Handmaiden,
Oh, yeah, sure.
she held this book and she said, God, have millions be sold. So my job is to write it, and then it's God's job to promote it and get it out there. And there's been many hundreds sold. And then I use the proceeds to send my book free into prisons in California, Arizona, and Illinois. And just meeting that chaplain in Illinois by phone through James Nibbett, that was kind of miraculous too.
Wow.
That man has an amazing ministry in the prison.
Hold your book up again. Hold it up a minute so people can see. Officer Honey, Light in the Darkness, available through Amazon. It's an exciting read and people love it. It's a gift because it's a fascinating testimony of somebody's life with the testimony of Jesus and the gospel woven through it.
And he did, yes.
With that?
What God did, how he turned that prison upside down, not me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then there's other guards that testified to the truth of that book that we've known through the years, but yeah.
And Pat wrote me a wonderful foreword that I really appreciate.
Oh, that was easy. Well, thank you so much. I know the time's been short, 2 minutes, but why don't we pray? Honey, would you pray for the people that are looking on right now, but also will be joining through the archive? Just pray as God leads you, as you always do. You always pray as God leads you. Please.
Oh, Lord, I just ask you by your Spirit to just give people faith and courage and confidence in your love, Lord. And Lord, help them to surrender their whole lives and trust in you and your love, Lord God. You're so beautiful. And Lord, give them courage to do the things that only you can do. We do our part, and then you do the rest, Holy Spirit. And Lord, it's exciting and fun and adventurous to walk with you. And Lord, you can do what we can't do.
Yeah.
And so I just ask you by your Spirit to give people faith to believe that your plan is better than anything they could plan for themselves, Lord, and to walk in obedience and trust that your way is best. And Lord, in the hard times, let them praise you in spite of the circumstances, because you will turn everything around for good, as you say in Romans 8:28. But the conditions are, if you love God and are called according to his purpose. So you have to know God, you have to love him. And if you love him, you're going to obey him, like it says in John. And so the conditions are, if you love him and you're trying the best you can to fit in the center of his will, then you know everything in your life will eventually be turned around for good. I've seen that hard, difficult conditions, even losing all my life savings. And God gave me supernatural, instant peace. Wow. And that only God can do that. I lost it about 4 or 5 years ago or less. And I continue to give 30% of my tithes.
Amazingly generous.
And he restored so much.
Wow.
See, what I do, I give 10% to church, about 18% to Operation Blessing 700 Club, because they do so much. And then I give in conferences or to people who have needs. I give in obedience, and I give the amount in obedience. And I don't know to the end of the year how much I gave. And the last 2 years, I didn't even know I did it. So that meant God restored and I didn't miss it. I gave 50% of my income.
Wow.
The last 2 years. That shows God, what God can do.
That's amazing. Lord will bless the people too with that anointing of sowing and reaping, because that is the principle. It's sowing, but also when God begins to honor from heaven the principle of reaping, that's also a blessing.
I was able to go to Brazil and we paid for the church. God paid for the church, from my savings to Brazil. And a woman, we gave a word of knowledge and prophetic words for 3 hours, for 3 days. In the midst, they had hundreds of people lined up to get a word from us, and we each had our own translator, and we gave prophetic words to individuals for 3 hours, for 3 days. And one lady looked happy, and I said, "You're an intercessor, and God's so pleased with your life of intercession, but your children think you're weird, and other people think you're crazy, and you're persecuted. But God is so appreciative." And I told her a little bit about her future, and she sobbed hard for over 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then she told us she was going to commit suicide that day. So God saved her life. And things like that happen.
Saved life by prophetic ministry. Well, you've heard us in the last few weeks weave in the idea of the baptism of the Holy Spirit with evidence of speaking in other tongues. You've heard us speak about prophecy. Honey is something that operates in the things of the Holy Spirit. So if you see her at church or in the gatherings, or we can forward your contact information to you. But if you're curious about this and you want them activated in your life, if you'll contact us, we'll pass on the information. And I know that she ministered to you in amazing, profound way. We got to log off. One last thing you wanted to say, honey? Okay, please.
Oh, I'm just going to give you my website.
Oh, good.
Which I'll give you is honeyfromtherockministry.com.
Honeyfromtherockministry.com. Okay, great. Honeyfromtherockministry.com. Check that out. She's done a Zoom meeting a few weeks ago, but you can follow.
Oh, it's going to be this Saturday.
It's coming, another one this Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. So you get information on the website. When things loosen up again, Honey does live meetings. They're very interactive with the Spirit of God and prophetic, et cetera. So you can contact her through her website or through us. But I know there's golden days ahead for Honey. So thank you, Honey, for being our guest today. We bless you. We will see you online on our online broadcasts on YouTube as well as Faith Sunday morning. They come on o'clock, and open guidelines, especially from the church, if you invite people to come and host a meeting. But we love you all again, and we want to see you on Sunday. God bless.
Thank you.